Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Daniel Pigeon. I'm product marketing at Cyberint. And with me today is Jacob Silutin and Adam Rollins from the Cyberint team in Dallas, Texas. Today, we're doing a webinar on fighting financial fraud. So we're going to give it maybe 2 or 3 minutes for people to join in before we get started. Hello, and welcome to everyone who's joining us. We're doing a webinar today on fighting financial fraud. We're going to give it about 2 or 3 minutes for everyone to join in before we get started. So give us just another minute. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to kick off in about 1 more minute. All right, welcome once again to everyone who's taken time out of your day to join us. We appreciate it. Today's webinar is on fighting financial fraud, how banks and financial service providers can reduce fraud-related losses. My name's Daniel Pigeon. I'm product marketing at Cyberint. And with me today is Adam Rollins. He's the sales director for the central region of the US, and also Jacob Silutin, who is the global director of pre-sales. So before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping notes. The session's being recorded, just to let everyone know. We will send out a link to the recording after this session, as well as the slides. We'll be happy to share these slides as well. And feel free to ask any questions along the way. We do have about 5 minutes at the end of the session set aside for Q&A, but if any questions come up along the way, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I think that we can address them as we go. So with that, I think we can do a quick round of introductions. Adam, you want to say hi first? All right. So Adam, there you go. Now you're unmuted.
Sorry about that. I had a field a Teams call. Hi, my name is Adam Rollins. I'm the, as Daniel mentioned, I am the central sales director for the US for Cyberint.
Yeah, my name is Jacob Silutin. I'm the global director of sales engineering, and I'll be leading this webinar.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Well, I think we can go ahead and kick off.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, sounds good. So thank you very much for joining this webinar. As I mentioned, my name is Jacob. I run the sales engineering team for Cyberint. I've been in the intelligence space for a little over 15 years. My background is mostly from the Israeli military and the Israeli intelligence services. So today we're going to be talking about financial fraud and how we can fight it and see the different ways that threat actors attack organizations in the space, and see what we can do to mitigate some of the risks and avoid some of these fraud-related losses. So there we go. So what we'll cover today is a brief overview of the financial fraud space, what's going on there. We'll talk about attack vectors such as VIP impersonation, phishing, business email compromise, account takeover, credit card fraud. And we'll talk about mitigation strategies, what we can do in order to first prevent, but also reduce the risk and reduce the damage from such attacks. So let's talk a little bit about what is the cost of the financial fraud. This is a very, very important piece of data. Over half of the large banks lost money to fraud. So 52% of the large banks with more than $10 billion in revenue, suffered some sort of fraud in the last 24 months. 18% of those 52% had over $50 million impacted by these fraud incidents. These are huge numbers. So 1 in every 2 big banks were affected by some sort of fraud, and there was a lot of money lost there if you make the calculations, right? A recent survey with chief risk officers kind of found out that 72% of those chief risk officers think that cyber security risk is top priority for 2023. 58% says the inability to manage cyber risk is the #1 risk for them in the upcoming 3 years. So it's on top of everybody's mind that these risks that appear from the cyberspace. There's a true cost to financial fraud. Obviously, there's the money that we lose, right? The actual money, if we lost $10 or $10 million. Once a breach happens, there's also company resources that come in play, right? So for every breach that happens, we need cybersecurity personnel to look into that breach, fraud people to look into that breach. Chief risk officer that we mentioned before needs to be involved. So we consume valuable resources from the company. We start seeing regulators, insurance companies. We get fines from these areas as well. And I'm sure that the people who got their bank account breached will no longer be customers of that same bank. So there's a brand damage and reputational harm as well. And it appears that for every $1 that the bank loses to fraud, there's another $3 that go into the incident. So it's not just the X amount of money that were stolen or taken, it's also 3x that in consumption of resources, fines, and brand damage. So let's take a look at some techniques that are being used out there by threat actors to gain access to those resources and to defraud the company and to steal money. One of the more interesting vectors is VIP impersonation. This is an interesting article for an impersonation for a CISO for Chevron. So the threat actors created a fake person by the name of Victor Seitz, and they the LinkedIn account claims that this person is the Chief Information Security Officer for Chevron. Chevron is a huge company, and being the CISO of that huge company probably means that the person is very, very experienced and has a lot of responsibility. However, looking at this profile, we can already see a few signs of it being not real. We can see that the individual only has 125 connections. Now, in the cyberspace, everybody who becomes a CISO, especially in a company like Chevron, probably has a little bit more than 125 connections. I would say probably, 125 times maybe 10 or even times 50. That would be a more accurate number of connections that an individual at this position should have, and also only follows 136, only has 136 followers and has no posts. So I don't know about a lot of CISOs that don't post or engage in LinkedIn, especially at that magnitude. So the threat actors then took an extra step, and if you would go to Google while that campaign was running by the threat actors, you would see that if you type in who is Chief Information Security Officer at Chevron, you will get this Victor Seitz as the first suggested result. Down the next result will be somebody a little bit more that could potentially be the Chief Information Security Officer, Christopher Lucas, right? He's the real Chief Information Security Officer for Chevron, but the threat actors made an effort to advertise or push the Google result to the top as well. So the threat actors go to that extra step. Here are a few more examples for impersonation of high levels of executives in other organizations. These also have telltale signs that these are fake. You can see on the right side, we have Jenny Biller, Chief of Information Security at Biogen. But we can see again, there's only 18 connections. The picture doesn't look very real. Maybe it's like a stock image. And the same goes to the left side. This one is a little bit more engaged, meaning the profile has 381 connections, but the picture, again, it seems like a stock picture, and ExxonMobil will probably, a simple Google search can indicate that this is not the real CISO of ExxonMobil. Another interesting piece of information here from an article, VIP impersonation attack on a Microsoft Office 365 environment targets 100,000 mailboxes. So it's becoming more and more preferable and easy to do. And we'll also see another very interesting example of combining a few techniques that we'll talk about with impersonation. So that this would be.
Can I jump in with a quick question, Jacob?
Yes.
So from a business standpoint, how can an organization know, or the security team know, if one of their executives, because it might not be the CISO, maybe it's the chief finance officer, or maybe it's the CEO even. So how can the business know that one of their employees, VIPs, is being impersonated?
Yeah, so there are many tools today that can do that automatically. Cyberint offers VIP impersonation detection, but of course it can also be done manually, meaning you can scan LinkedIn, you can search for your executive names on LinkedIn and try to see if there's more than one profile. Obviously, if your executive's name is John Smith, you'll see many profiles that are named John Smith, but there should only be one John Smith that is the executive in your organization. So you can monitor it manually. Of course, it takes an effort, but a tool like Cyberint can help you do that automatically, where we monitor for you and alert on these fake pages. There's also mitigation steps that you can take. For example, with us, with Cyberint, you can request for a takedown, and our in-house team will connect LinkedIn and request for a takedown of that impersonating page. All right, so thank you for the question. Yeah, and let's move on to the next technique. Phishing. So phishing has been on the rise, and it's constantly been increasing from year to year to year, and you can see that steady growth from 2019 to late last year. And if we had the data for more for the first 2 quarters of this year, we'll probably see the same kind of linear growth when it comes to phishing attacks. Looking at different sectors or different industries that are targeted by phishing, banking is by far the biggest targeted industry. So you can see that 28% of the phishing attacks that occurred in Q4 2022 targeted the banking industry. There are many different dimensions of a phishing attack. There are many ways that somebody could start a phishing attack, starting with impersonating websites that steal credentials. There's a few examples that I have in later slides. There are websites that deploy malware, same fake websites that you just log into, and then you have malware deployed on your machine. And there's also documents and files that can be shared via emails. And we also have an example for that later down the slides, where there are emails with embedded files, malware embedded files that are being sent from a phishing domain. And these techniques can be used in the various different delivery methods. One, impersonation on social media, which we just covered. It can also be emails with malicious attachments or links, and it can also be malvertising or malicious digital ads that have links to those websites and so on. The targets or the victims can be different. They can be employees of the banking and financial institutions. They could be customers, or they could be trusted third parties of these banks and institutions. And the outcome At the end of the day, what they're looking to do is either deploy malware or steal data, or do both. Deploy malware that steals data. So let's take a look at a few examples that we've seen in the wild. One example could be this active phishing website that's targeting a company. In this case, it's Barclays Bank. You can see the URL right here. Let me do a laser pointer somehow. There we go. So you can see the Barclays Bank mentioned here in the URL. You can also see the Barclays logo right here. So this is how a lookalike domain, a lookalike website would appear with a place to fill in your information, the surname, the last name, the banking information. And so you go in thinking this is the real website, but it is a fake one. You plug in your credentials, and this is how the customer this is how the customer's credentials end up at the threat actor's hands. Over here at the top, you can see the takedown button that we mentioned before. We at Cyberint have the capability to go in and take down this website so that more people won't see it in the future. Here's another example of a phishing kit. So this is how threat actors distribute those kits. You can see on the left side a screenshot from a Telegram channel from Spox that they offer a kit with excellent anti-bot protection, stolen data backups, and easy phishing page management. They offer this kit for various banks, Capital One, Wells, Discover, Chase, Amex, and PNC, and other banks. What you get from that kit is a collection of web components. Make it very, very easy for people that don't have the technical skills to build a website. You can just do it using a kit. It's very, very easy and cost-effective, meaning from an effort perspective, to just go in, buy a kit for $10, $20, spin up your website, deploy that kit on the website, and you're good to go. Next slide, there we go. So there's even a more sophisticated way to do that, a phishing kit with a true login page. So in this instance here on the left side, you can see the threat actor engagement, where we talk to the threat actor and we want to buy that kit. So the threat actor also adds on top of that, this is a true login page. What does it mean? It means that there's a phishing website. The victim goes into that phishing website. Once they fill in their information in the phishing website and click enter, there's a redirection for the real banking page. In more sophisticated instances, the process takes the real information, plugs it into the real page, and then the user sees, okay, I logged in, but in the way you see the threat actors here in the middle, gets the login information, gets the password, and the victim went to the phishing website and ended up in the real website after he logged in his credentials, thinking, okay, all good, I can view my account. So that's a good way to kind of mask the fact that they're using a phishing website. Next, we have business email compromise. So business email compromise is on the rise. There's an increase of 38% of business email compromise attacks from 2019 to 2022. 35 million business email compromise reviewed in 2022, with an estimated of 135,000 attacks every day. So business email compromise can be, and also another piece of information here, that business email compromise is the second largest revenue loss method after investment and tech support and so on. So we can see that in 2022, business email compromise losses are estimated to be an incredible $2.7 billion. So let's see how it works. There's a few ways that the business email compromise can be carried. It can be threat actor taking over a corporate email account. That's the obvious way, and that's what business email compromise is classically known for. But there are two new ways or two more even easier ways. One will be spoofing email addresses that seem to be the business email itself. That we can do also using email domain squatting, similar domains, or actually spoofing an email address that appears to be belonging to the company with additional words like CEO-bankname.com. And it can also be taken over a third-party account. After we do one of these, we impersonate with an email with a fraudulent invoice or with some fraudulent request for money. And then the finance person on the other side believes, okay, yes, I'm in business with this individual and I need to pay. And then the corporate funds are sent to the threat actor's account instead of being sent to the real person, or there's no real person at all. It's just a made up scenario. And then people just pay money from corporate funds.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick. So how are the threat actors actually what's their approach to actually trick victims into believing that the invoice is actually real?
So with taking over corporate email accounts, that's one way, or taking over third parties. When you take over an email account, you can read all the correspondences within that email. So you can contextualize your attack based on a correspondence that was there before, right? I had connection with vendor X. We had some money transactions in the past. Now I can layer my attack over that interaction and say, hey, remember me? I need more money because of XYZ. And that's one way. The other way is maybe quantity over quality, going for various victims, many victims, and trying to see if something sticks. That's another way. And there are more ways. There's ways that are a little bit more complicated, which is building the story from zero, right? Building the interaction, doing some social engineering, adding more vectors of attack like VIP impersonation into the mix, and actually building a brand new story with a conclusion of them paying the threat actor money. So does this make sense?
Yes, it does make sense.
So, and we can see some examples here, right? This is a very recent example, and it goes to show that it doesn't necessarily take a huge corporation to be exploited by this type of scam. Here we see a school district, a small school district that was defrauded $346,000 based on a sophisticated scam. But if you read into the article, it's actually a business email compromise where they say, hey, you owe us money. They send the money, then, oh, you owe us a little bit more money. And it kind of accumulated to $346,000. And a bigger scam or a bigger business email compromise was this individual here who tricked Google and Facebook over $100 million in fake invoices. He impersonated a company from Taiwan and continuously built them over 4 years for components that were never there, and it was sent to the finance team personnel. He knew that they have business with Quanta Computer from Taiwan, and just on a 4-year on a regular basis, continued to send this money, and it accumulated to $100 million, which is a lot of money. So over here, we can see an example from our platform, from Argus, where we see an attached payments reporting at CEO-Wells Fargo being sent to this individual, George here, which I obscured his name. So George here is, you can see here on the right side of the screen, George is a chief financial officer for his company and as director of finance. So again, there's very, very targeted campaign here against this individual who is the finance person. So they're sending from Wells Fargo a payment attachment, okay? This email was sent to you by our accounting team. See attached Excel file for details. Now it can be a combination of a few things. It can be a combination of phishing, right? Sending a file which is infected with malware. It's impersonation. Somebody's impersonating the CEO of Wells Fargo, and it's business email compromise, being, hey, I'm from Wells Fargo, you're from your company, you need to send me money. By the way, looking into this and doing a little bit of research using our forensic canvas, we can see here that there are a few domains that are very similar and are all connected. Over here, we have Remit-Wells Fargo. Over here, we have CEO at Wells Fargo. And over here, we have, it's a little bit small, but it says directpay-wellsfargo.com. So all of these are connected, which also leads me to believe that this is actually a part of a phishing kit, right? We talked about phishing kits, how easy it is to spin up phishing kits. That's exactly what that is. So this is kind of starting to combine impersonation with business email compromise, with using phishing kits and attachments that have malware in them. All of the techniques that we mentioned by themselves are very, very dangerous and very successful. But combining those techniques, I think that this is the threat actor's path to really ensuring that something will stick. Another example of combining techniques would be this example here from this article by Krebs Security for a fake job offer. So what they did here, they again started with impersonation on LinkedIn, created those fake profiles for HR at HSBC or chief whatever at HSBC. They reached out to people. They started a recruitment campaign, and then once they maybe interviewed them, maybe send them some information and receive their email, they would send them this job description PDF over email, and this job description contained a malicious file that then later ran on their machine. Also interesting to note that this more sophisticated campaign, which combined techniques like we saw before, was ran by a North Korean threat actor group. So it was a little bit more of like a state threat actor rather than an opportunistic one. But again, we more and more see that the threats for the financial institutions and banking are more from those opportunistic threat actors that just want to be where the money is, rather than nation state or well-known threat actor groups. But these two examples again are from various sides of the spectrum of threat actors.
I may be getting ahead of you, but because BEC is such a predominant threat vector, especially for many businesses, what is the most effective way to combat against it, especially when you start to pull in all these elements of the phishing, the fraudulent websites, the fraudulent impersonations? What's the most effective way to combat it against it? And like I said, I may be getting ahead of of you here.
No, but that's a great question. And because there's a combination of tools and techniques here, you need to have a tool that allows you to do a wide variety of monitoring. Monitoring for lookalike domain registrations, for example, would be one of them, right? If somebody spins up a new domain that's similar to your domain, for example, the CEO-wellsfargo.com. If Wells Fargo security would have known about this domain, maybe they could have blocked it in their firewalls and also send a notification to their partners saying, hey, there's a suspicious domain that was recently registered. We don't know if it's malicious yet or not, but we recommend not to receive emails for that domain because it's very, very suggestive of, okay, this is the CEO of Wells Fargo. Furthermore, monitor for LinkedIn impersonations. We talked about that. Monitoring the dark web for techniques and tools that people are selling, especially when it comes to business email compromise. And looking for those anomalies in your emails, in your communications with your vendors and third parties. Another thing that, if I already mentioned the word third parties, is monitoring your third parties, right? Knowing if there are any risks that come in from them, understanding their exposure, their hygiene, understanding whether they are being mentioned on various forums on the deep and dark web. So that would be kind of like an all-inclusive type of monitoring, especially when they start combining techniques.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, another threat vector that we see a lot is account takeover. We again see a graph, of course, that only grows year to year to year. Consumers reported losing over $8.8 billion in fraud in 2021. A lot of credit card fraud cases over the last years, right? And I believe it's only going to grow from year to year. There's various ways to obtain credentials. This is what the threat actors are doing, right? They can distribute info stealers and keyloggers, and the distribution of malware of info stealers and keyloggers is very, very simple. All you need to do is buy it as a service. So there are already websites that offer malware as a service. You just buy a service, you define your targets, and then the threat actors do it for you, and then you get the logs into your server. Phishing, it's very simple. We talked about how we can do that to achieve credentials. Social engineering, again, we see that a lot with the old school scams, call centers that scam the vulnerable elderly. Maybe they can call them, ask them, hey, what's your account number and password, because we've seen some suspicious activity on your account. And hack databases, right? Threat actors always hack various things. They sell them, they publish them, and we see that all the time, again, over here at Cyberint as well. So here are a few examples of a very simple interface where you can just buy people's accounts, Cash App accounts, PayPal accounts. There's a website for taking over accounts from PayPal, and the consequences of account takeovers could be different but same between email with employees and customers, right? If the employee account has been taken over, the corporate network has been breached, internal data is compromised, which could lead to data exposure, which could lead to customers' information being leaked, and also extortion, ransomware, and so on. And customers' data, of course, banks and financial institutions are responsible for keeping their customers' information hidden from the world. So we, of course, don't want that to happen. But of course, the more accounts and the more customers that have their accounts taken over, the more financial risk there is to your organization, right? So I can buy a credential of a customer, log in, basically empty their bank account and move on to the next one.
I got a quick question here. So like with the account takeovers, compromised credentials is like a huge vector to get into these accounts. There is a lot of bad information being sold on the deep and dark web, right? Or, in open chat channels, wherever information is being traded, there's definitely bad information out there that there could be just a threat actor just trying to make a name for himself. So taking again the position of like a financial institution, how do you verify like the credentials that that are being solicited or that are being distributed are either legitimate or illegitimate when it comes to their customers or their employees?
Yeah. And I understand the question. I mean, sometimes, bad guys are just bad guys and they will scam each other all day long. They will say, hey, I'm selling this. Another bad guy will come and buy whatever they're selling, and it turns out it's nothing. So that happens all the time. But a service like ours, for example, could help you with continuously obtaining those credentials, whether it's because they're just out there. We can collect them, aggregate them, deduplicate them, index them, and show you all the different credentials that we see that are out there just open. Or we can also proceed with buying those things on a regular basis and then send them through an automation to your customer database or to your employee database, where you can continuously verify whether these credentials are true or not. And if they're true, take action like blocking the account if it's like an employee, freezing the account if it's a customer, forcing password resets, and monitoring the accounts more closely to see if there are any weird transactions that are going on in regards to that. So a tool that helps you aggregate all these credentials on a continuous basis is the best approach, especially a tool that has access to those deep and dark web corners where these things are being sold, a tool that can help you also buy those things. The credentials behind the paywall are usually only obtainable if you pay for them, right? So you need to have that kind of process that's continuous.
Thanks.
All right. Last, well, not last, but one of the kind of final vectors of attack that we're going to talk about is stolen credentials and stolen PII. So here's an example from Argus from the Cyberint platform on how easy it is to just obtain somebody's information, credit card, social security number, and address. So you can basically apply for loans, apply for bank accounts, and just be that person in order to steal his information. So over here, we see an example of a Telegram chat called Bin Taker chat. And this is an example of a full credit card with a name and a CVV and an expiration date of a person by the name of Craig, just being exposed on this chat. So we can take this person, his name is Craig, and we can search for him in the stolen PII, meaning the social security number marketplace. So we find Craig, we find that we find out his address, we find out his city, we find out his driver license and social security number after we buy it, and then we have a full set of an identity of a person, or like threat actor call it fools, and we can now obtain money basically. So cash cow, that's kind of like an older example, but that just shows how easy it is to find and buy credit cards. We also have another example here for buying prepaid MasterCards or buying credit cards. And another example from Darkbat. I actually have live examples that I prepared, but my computer had to reset for some reason. But I will try to get them maybe at the end of the call. Live examples from Telegram channels where threat actors just show their inventory. They show fake credit cards, how they load them. They'll load these white plastic cards with fake accounts, and then they sell them and ship them to other threat actors, where the threat actors can take those cards and go in and go to the ATM and try to pull money from the ATM using those fake cards. So last but not least, ransomware. Ransomware has been on the rise. We all know that. The nations that are most targeted by ransomware in Q1, United States by far is the most targeted one by the number of attacks. It's been on the rise from 2020. We can see that only in Q1 2023, there were 861 reported ransomware attacks. Finance being one of the targeted vectors here. It's not the most targeted vector. Manufacturing, retail, education are more targeted, but of course, finance is also targeted. And when we talk about why certain industries are more targeted than others, I can tell you that it's based on the maturity level of the security team, on the budget, and on the opportunity. All right, ransomware groups today look at opportunities. Don't look at, oh, this company is from the United States. We're a group from China, so now China attacking the United States. No, they don't care about that. They care more about how much money they can make. So they just target everyone. Finance is being one of the targeted industries as well. This is a screenshot from our platform Argus. This is our ransomware tracking capability. And we can see here that we have hits from yesterday when I was preparing this slideshow, hits from yesterday for new victims of Downhill Gang and Lockbeat and more and more and more. And this list just goes on. And all of these things are just from yesterday. what I have censored here are company names. So they continuously advertise that yes, we ransomware this group, this group, this group, this company, this bank, and so on. All right, so let's talk a little bit about mitigation strategies. And of course, throughout the conversation, you probably start thinking, what can I do in order to reduce the risk from these types of attacks? So security awareness. I had a conversation yesterday with someone, and she said something interesting, that the employees of your organization are basically your human firewalls, right? They're the first place where threat actors come into contact with when it comes to social engineering scenarios. And if you think about it, phishing, impersonation, all these things are types of social engineering. So security awareness is very, very important to your employees, to your partners, and giving them a visibility that these things are out there and these things need to be taken into consideration on your day-to-day. Visibility into those data leaks. So Adam asked, what can we do with all these leaked credit cards, leaked PII? First thing is to know that they are out there. The second thing to do is to automate this as a process. Monitor your third parties, right? Monitor the risks that you get from your vendors, your partners, companies that you work with, companies that technology-wise may host your data, may host your customers' data. Monitor the web for brand impersonation. So see those impersonating domains, impersonating sites, impersonating social media profiles as they spin up. Being ahead of the curve, seeing them, okay, now there's a new fake impersonation page for my CEO. I want to catch it before it has X amount of connections and Y amount of publications and so on. I want to catch it at 0.0 so I can take it down quickly before it manages to do any damage. And then finally use threat intel to identify the TTPs, the IOCs that are related to fraud, and integrate them into your security stack so that you can proactively defend against these types of attacks. Lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about what Cyberint does and how we can help you prevent those things. So Cyberint looks at your organization and maps your organization's digital footprint. We look at what really belongs to you. And we talked about, right, social media, your customer, employee information, your brands and logos, your applications, your suppliers, and so on. We can do that automatically, while we monitor also all these threat actors that have all these different techniques that they use, fraud, phishing, brand impersonation, all these things continuously happen, right? So we can do both. We can look at the attack surface of your organization and show the issues and vectors of attack into that organization. And also we monitor the clear, deep, and dark web for the rise of these techniques, for the communication between the threat actors. We monitor the markets where these things are sold. And we have a great capability when it comes to threat intelligence from the open, deep, and dark web. This is a quick list of the things that Cyberint does. We have 4 pillars of technology: threat intelligence, attack surface management, digital risk protection, and supply chain intelligence, where we do monitor and help with a lot of the use cases, all of the use cases that we mentioned during this webinar. We can also help with remediation, with takedowns, with integrations to other devices where you can automate some of the remediation. And we also have an expert threat intelligence team to conduct some of these research and virtual human operations to help you get to the cause and then mitigate the threats. So that's it from my side. Let's open it up for questions. I hope this was beneficial. And let's see if we have any questions from the participants. Or maybe questions from Adam. I was very active.
The only thing that I was going to say is that the idea of fraud in finance or across pretty much any industry, but especially in finance, is that there are so many things that are coming together across the threat vector spectrum, if you will. that play together to create that that use case. And so there are obviously things like domain infringement that can be very consistent, be very monitored for, and the takedowns could be, you know, proactive. But then there's a lot of nuanced things that really takes people to really kind of figure out and uncover. And I think that that's an element that sometimes solutions technology, you know, comes up short, and you get alerted on things that are not necessarily what you really care about. And so I know within our organization, our people are absolutely part of our equation, and especially working with fraud use cases where we actually have people that are proactively using the intelligence that we're able to create to really go find and dig in and create very contextualized, enriched alerts so that when we go look at a fraud alert for an organization, there's a lot of context behind it, and there's a lot of evidence already there, so that the organization can go then take action, whether that's remediation and protecting the individual, or maybe an employee that's particularly targeted, or the customer who's compromised, or whatever that method of fraud that's being is being addressed. So it's just people are needed. You know, we don't live in a bubble of technology. People are a huge piece of the equation, and there's a lot of variables that go into finding and combating fraud for any organization.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that intelligence can never be fully automated. It also always has to have that human component, which reports, analyzes, and helps with the mitigation. All right, if there are no questions.
Well, just
wrap it up.
one last comment from me. I think fascinating presentation, Jacob. Thanks so much for running the webinar and hosting this. I think something that you said really stuck out to me, which is the human firewall comment, and I think that that's so important too. Is just remembering that so much of cybersecurity hinges on humans, because it's ultimately humans building the technology, operating the technology, integrating the technology, addressing the alerts. So definitely technology is there as a huge, really powerful tool, but also just how important it is to for everybody to be very cyber aware and to understand these risks and threats, which is also what the intelligence can help to provide. So yeah, just some really excellent points throughout. Thanks again.
Thank you very much for listening. And yeah, reach out if you have any questions. If you find out, I'm at jsilutin@cyberint.com. Please feel free to reach out.
All right, thanks once again, everybody. We will send out the recording and the slides later, so keep an eye out for that. And feel free to share, feel free to reach out, as Jacob mentioned. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you.